Welcome to Connecting Communities. I'm your host, Nancy Bacci. With me today is Lieutenant Jim Keenan from the Somerville Fire Department. Thank you for coming on again, Jim.
My pleasure, Nancy. Thanks for having me.
As you know, we do this every year because fire safety is such an important topic, and then really focusing on some fire prevention techniques is super important. With that being said, this year's theme is don't wait, check the date, replace your smoke alarm every 10 years. This was new information to me, quite honestly. I wasn't aware that there was kind of a parameter of time to utilize a smoke alarm. So,
yeah, like any piece of technology, nobody even uses VCRs anymore, all DVDs, right? CDs, whatever. It's, they get outdated, and the newer ones work better. So the date, it's the date of manufacture also, not when you bought it or put it out.
Oh, that's a very important point.
So the date for the manufacturer is on the back of the smoke detector.
Yes.
So you'd have to take it down from the ceiling and look at the back, and it'll tell you when it was manufactured.
And at that point, you want to go 10 years from that date.
Yeah.
Excellent. So another area we wanted to speak about was the importance of correct placement of smoke detectors within your home. So what would be some areas you would want to make certain you have a smoke alarm near?
Well, we, now we have the combination detectors, carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. So you need one of those on every level of your home, ceiling, first floor, second floor, attic. And they've got to be, on the living areas, they've got to be within 10 feet of sleeping areas. So say you've got a 20-foot hallway.
Yeah.
You could put one in the middle, and that would be 10 feet from each one. Inside the bedrooms, you can put just the plain smoke detectors. It doesn't have to be a combination. But you need one on every level near the entrances and or the exits, front and back halls.
Now, one thing that we often hear about is people who, as a result of cooking or something burning, will take it down or take out the batteries and just have that, like, I don't want it to go off while I've burned my popcorn or left something in the oven. And what do we really strongly want to tell people about that?
Don't do it.
Don't ever do that. Never, ever do that.
I know in the stores now, like at Home Depot, Lowe's, those places where they sell them, they have specific room designations. Like they have one that will say for kitchens, and they have a button that you can actually shut it off temporarily.
Right.
Now, if the condition persists, it's going to go off again. Taking the batteries out is always a bad idea because if you forget, you're not protected. That's the number one cause of smoke and carbon monoxide detector failure is missing, disconnected, or dead batteries.
One important point that we try to touch on every year as well is the importance of checking the batteries in your smoke detector. And as we know, it's recommended to do on a regular basis. And with that being said, we have the spring ahead, fall back, which always serves as my reminder. And as I had mentioned to you, I actually set a reminder in my phone. So an alarm goes off saying, check the batteries in your smoke detectors. And as we know from the weather these past few days, fall has definitely come our way. So it's a good way as well when you're changing to your clocks to just get in the habit of checking your batteries as well.
Yeah, we recommend that you check the batteries once a month at minimum. You could do it more often, but once a month at minimum. And as you said, twice a year, change them. And it's usually the program we have done for years in the fire service is change your clock, change your batteries. The importance of the smoke and carbon monoxide detectors is that most home fire deaths occur between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. when most people are sleeping, but only 1 in 5 house fires occur at that time.
Really?
So what this is telling us is that more people are dying at night than during the day, and like I said, because they're not getting woken up by these detectors. So it's really your best way to protect yourself and your family is to have these working smoke detectors and check them all the time, change the batteries.
I think it's important, too, to make certain everyone within your household is aware of the sound of it. I feel like, we're kind of at a different level now of just being inundated sometimes with so much background noise, and everything is just, it seems like everything kind of happens in like capital letters now, right? Like, if a little loud is good, then a lot louder is better, and, but just really understanding the difference in that noise, so it's important to just kind of check them and make certain that everyone is aware of what this sounds like and just understanding, it's a different kind of impact.
When we go into the schools with the SAFE program, Student Awareness of Fire Education, we bring the detectors so that the kids, will know what it sounds like. They may have never heard it. You know, maybe got lucky, it never went off. And of course, as we did on last year's program, we had the combination ones that now speak to you. You know, they have two different distinct beeping noises, whether it's for smoke and fire or for carbon monoxide. But it will tell you, you know, evacuate, evacuate, carbon monoxide detected, or evacuate, fire, fire. But it's still a good idea, you know, this way, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and the smoke detector goes off, you know, people in your house, you know, young or old, won't freak out. They'll know what it is. And if you plan and practice an escape drill in the home, you'll know what to do, which we can talk about also. But it's really important to have these working detectors and know what to do when they go off.
Well, that is a nice segue into kind of having an escape plan. So, you know, unfortunately, statistics bear out there are a number of fires that happen in our areas and all areas over the course of a year. And having a plan in place and a plan that everyone is familiar with. And I think sometimes, too, you know, we have a lot of people sometimes in and out of our homes, or if you have children, they have sleepover guests and things like that. The importance of making certain, you know, you don't want to scare young children, which I think is very important, and I know we'll talk about that when we talk about the SAFE program, ways to provide information without traumatizing young children, honestly. But just making certain that at least the members of your household are aware of the plan and that they would be in a position to provide that information to others as well. So let's talk escape plans.
Yeah, you know, knowledge is power for any of us. And knowing what to do in an emergency is really important. You know, time is of the essence. So having this plan in place and practicing it and knowing what to do, it would just make it a lot better for all of us. I did read recently that like 80% of families in our area have an escape plan, but 60% of them have never practiced it.
Right.
So it's not only important to have one, but it's to, you know, to practice it. And we talked about it before in the past. You know, you don't have to do it at 2 o'clock in the morning. You can just wait till it's dark out. You know, it's getting dark at 7 o'clock now, 7 or 8 o'clock, and just shut the lights off. And of course, some of the things that are included. The first thing is, when the smoke detector goes off, to have planned 2 ways out of the house. Like we always say, the easiest is the front door or the back door. You know, 2 ways out of the house. If your door is closed, to feel the back of the door, you know, your bedroom door, with the back of your hand because it's more sensitive, or the doorknob, and to see if it's hot. And so if you get out, and we always say if the smoke is up in the ceiling and you can walk out, or, you know, briskly walk out, do that. If the smoke is banking down, crawl, you know. We always show the kids, you know, first on hands and knees, then we get them right on their belly, like, you know, the soldiers in boot camp, you know, because that's really where the, you know, the cool and clean air is.
And that's a nice way to engage with them too, which makes it, again, a little more interactive and not fun, but not as scary to have the information.
Yeah, I think we try to make it informative but fun. You know, one of the other things we teach kids, you know, we bring in like the mask, and I always pretend I'm like Darth Vader. I always go,
I can see that.
Because that's what it sounds like. And it could be scary if you're a child. So that's another reason we go into the schools, to introduce ourselves, you know, not just the way I look today, but the way I'm going to look
fully geared
when that alarm happens. And again, so we want to get out of the house, and you got to have a meeting place. Everybody goes to the same spot. Like I said, you got a tree in front of your house, mailbox, hydrant. And I don't have any of those things in front of my house, so my meeting place for my family is my neighbor's front porch, my front stairs. So that way we know that everybody got, you know, you go, all right, I'm here, my daughters are here, okay, everybody's out. And if they're not there, that's the first thing we're going to do, is find them and get them out. You know, and it's important to practice it once in a while.
I think the importance too, and I think it applies equally to everyone, is that sense of, as you said, there's a sense of urgency with this, right? And I think sometimes, you know, if your detector is going off, and as you said, you look and, you know, there's smoke, or maybe there's not smoke, but you're still moving it out. The importance of leaving immediately, not let's stop and look for this, or maybe I should grab some items, or, you know, that importance of, this is a serious situation. The alarm is going off. Whatever the cause of it might be, you need to just vacate, and having, you know, that sense, again, here's where we all are, so no one is going back in looking for someone else. And I know that's kind of a hard lesson to really absorb, is it's the fire department's role to go in these situations. And again, if someone is not in place at your meeting site, they need to be made aware of that, and that's obviously going to be the first action they're taking. But that to go against kind of your own instinct to go back in, I think is very important.
Yeah, that's you bring up a good point. Don't stop for anything. No toys, no pocketbooks, no money. Those things can be replaced. You can't. So you want to get out quickly, go to your meeting place, call 911, which I did not mention earlier, and don't go back in until you're told to by the fire department. A lot of people think they have a lot of time to get out. I read something recently that people think they have like 6 or 8 minutes. Sometimes it could be.
That seems like a really long time.
It's a very long time. You don't. I mean, a small fire, like in a wastebasket, from the incipient or beginning stages to full burning can be like 3 minutes. You want to get out.
Right, and I think the uncertainty too. I mean, I think that's a very common fear with people, or at least I know it's a serious one of mine, is just the unsettling nature of fire. I mean, even just watching, if you see, as we're all, again, inundated with exposure on the news and stuff, and you see something that really just engulfs so quickly, and the realization that, again, if you had stopped for fill in the blank, you would potentially be in the midst of that situation.
That's part of the fire prevention. And, we have Fire Prevention Week, October 9th to the 15th this year. But really, it should be fire prevention every day.
Yes.
I always tell the kids when I go into the schools, and I suppose I can tell adults too, it's a lot easier to prevent fires than to put them out after they start.
Yes.
So, small things, but we practice fire safety. Those are the things that keep us safe, protected, and keep down the incidents of fire and accidents.
I mean, there are a lot of potentials, as you think of. I mean, easy access to lighters or matches or, things around your home. And again, safe disposal of smoking materials, just all of these things. People using outdoor grills, people, who in other areas who have fire pits. I mean, just all of these things that, you can't eliminate from everyday life, but just knowing the safety measures around those helps keep you, your family, and everyone surrounding you in a much safer place.
Yes, cooking is #1 cause of home fires. People get distracted, the cell phone goes off, or, geez, I need some more breadcrumbs, and they're down in the cupboard, down in the cellar or something. It's just, that's the #1 cause of home fires. The second leading cause of home fires is heating, which, the heating season is starting up.
Yes.
So you need a professional to come and check out your boiler, clean the ducts, make sure it's operating properly. And, if you have a wood stove or a working fireplace, make sure the chimney's clean.
Right.
The flue.
I mean, I know another thing that we often talk about with the colder weather coming is space heaters as well, and the importance of the clearance around those and the safety of the outlets you're plugging these items into.
Yeah, first and foremost, if you do use a space heater, you want to make sure that it's legitimate. It's got like the UL or Factory Mutual tag on it, so that it's been tested and it's safe. You don't know where these things are coming from. They could be coming from a different country, most likely. That don't have the same standards we do.
Right.
So make sure it's got UL or Factory Mutual stamp on it.
Yes.
And like you said, it's these things draw a lot of power. So if you want to make sure it's in a 3-prong outlet and not use the converter thing, and it has to be 3 feet away from anything that could burn, including but not limited to upholstered furniture, curtains, clothing, you,
Right.
It's got to be 3 feet away from anything that could catch fire.
And I think you'd mentioned too, like not using the converter adapters, but also sometimes you see people running extension cords as well, because this is an item, if we're talking space heaters, this is an item that isn't typically in use, right? It has a, you're bringing it out for a period of time, so it's not necessarily sited like, where you have everything plugged into your home. So people tend to sometimes use extension cords, and I was in a friend's house who was using some items, and she was very excited at this extension cord she had purchased at the dollar store. And I was like, well, that's good. And I was like, and you're using it for, and she had it and had numerous things, and I was just like, just for safety purposes, maybe we should just look and see the best use of that. And it was
do you want to see the rating?
It's just information sharing, but literally was like, you have so much stuff plugged into this and
Yeah.
it cost $1. So, it's just that. And then I'm thinking again, as you said, like the power drawn on something such as a space heater. Just, and it's some of those things that I think we don't think of every day, right? Because everybody's got the hustle and bustle of things. And, if the room is cold, the space heater's the solution, right? So we're all very solution focused. And it's like, just plug it in and, here's where you're going. And then taking the time, as you said, to research the safety of the actual space heater itself, to understand the restrictions of how you should and shouldn't be using outlets. It's more effort, and I think sometimes it's important, as you and I mentioned earlier. We repeat this information, but everyone learns through repetition.
Yes, absolutely.
You hear it once and it's like, oh, that was something I didn't know. But if you continue to hear it, it's easier to implement it just into your own mindset when you're doing things.
Yeah, you had made a good point about the extension cords. They should never be used with, even a heavy-duty one should not be used with something like a space heater that draws a lot of power, because they're going to heat up. And, and then you should never put any kind of cord under a rug or under furniture, because it'll just heat it up.
Right, and I think that's important to mention as well, as we talked about sometimes in the cooler weather, people will bring out, the space runners and stuff, different rugs and other things you're using more in the fall and winter in your home, mats to wipe your feet on when you're coming in, and again, thinking of the placement of where you have things. So another area when we briefly touched on about the escape plan and doing it in the dark, your house is very different in the dark. The things that are the most familiar to you sometimes, it's like, so who moved that in the middle of the night? Because how could that be there? The importance, again, of people having scatter rugs and items that become a slip and fall hazard, but also that could really impede your safe exit from your home.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and even if we had a fire during the day, if it got smoky enough, it's going to be like night.
Right.
It's the same thing, and that's again why we tell you to crawl low under the smoke. But yeah, I mean, I tripped over a thing at my house the other day, because I didn't put the light on. I was down my cellar and I forgot I moved a little 5-gallon bucket. Almost broke my neck. So I was like, okay, yeah, next time put the light on.
Right, but
yeah, and then not only is it going to be dark, you're probably going to be panicking. At least a little bit. Your blood pressure is going to be elevated.
Right. And again, that kind of your focus shifts as well.
Yeah, so I guess one of the things we could say is, it is a good housekeeping is helpful too. Keeping trash out of the way, keeping the doorways and the hallways and the stairways, clear of clutter. It's amazing some of the places we get into. People just don't realize, or they don't think it's going to happen to me.
That's exactly what I think it is. I don't think there's ever any ill intent with people.
No.
I think it's just that sense of, also like the lack of permanency. Like, I'll just put this here for now, and then I'll take it out, or then I'll move it, and then it just becomes part of the background, and you don't ever shift it back. And then realizing, like you said, when you're practicing your escape plan, and I think it's interesting sometimes, and I'm sure this must come up when you guys speak with the young children, it's just how it looks from almost different levels as well, right? So if you're a small child, and if it's in a situation, like you said, where you're kind of walking briskly as opposed to being on the ground, understanding potential obstructions and just, I think of that sometimes during the holiday season with like multiple decorations and things that aren't part of our everyday experience, even in our own homes, and just understanding how to navigate that.
Yeah, we talk about that every year, like Christmas trees. Some people have huge Christmas trees. It takes up a lot of space. Like you said, could impede your way out of the home. And the lighting on them, you gotta, they're making these new LED lights that are like low power, low heat. They're really much safer. With the Christmas tree, we always talk about putting water in the dish, making sure, they can drink a lot of water. And you want to get
you have your heat higher, so that's causing the water
you want to try
dissipate.
to keep it away from any heat source. Even just a vent with hot air blowing, it might not ignite it, but it's going to dry it out.
Right.
And make it easier to be ignited. And like you said, if you've got, if the lights are old, you see a crack in the wire or something, get rid of them, buy new ones.
Right.
You want to protect yourself, and never put candles on a Christmas tree. That's a bygone era.
Yes.
I don't even remember that.
I don't either, but I've seen pictures.
And just candles themselves, even not at Christmas time or holiday time.
Right.
You have to practice fire safety with candles, because they're like the third leading cause of home fires.
Right.
Being unattended, walking out of the room. And I know everybody likes them. I like them. if I cook fish and I don't want my house to stink, I light a candle.
Right.
But you have to keep that, again, at least a foot away from anything that can burn, especially like near a windowsill or where the drapes are or something, because I've been to fires. I've actually witnessed one. We got called for the call, and I was driving the pump years ago, and the breeze was blowing the curtain over the candle. I watched it. It was right on Island Ave. I was like, oh no.
Right, things again that you don't take into consideration.
Yeah, and you got to get, like those, I know they're expensive. I mean, there's like knockoff ones, like Yankee Candle. I use it for an example. That heavy glass container. You do not want to keep a candle just burning on the table or the counter or whatever. It's got to be in some kind of, legitimate holder. And really, if you're going to go out of the room, blow it out. You can always light it back up.
Well, that I was thinking when you were saying that. One of the best gifts I ever got years ago is just like a little thing, was a candle snuffer. Just a little, put right over, and it puts it out, because, you're leaving the room, or, it's just, some people I know are hesitant when you go to extinguish a candle, if you're blowing it out with the wax right there, and worry about, any kind of splatter from that. And it was just like,
that's a good one. See, I always learn something, whether I go into like schools and talk to kids, or go to the seniors centers and talk to the seniors, or now today talking to you. That's one of the fun things about this, is that I actually always learn something. We were talking about smoke detectors, and I'll never forget, years ago I was in one of the schools, and we always say, oh, the smoke detector's going off. Going off. No, it's going on. It's sounding. And some kids says, isn't it on? I'm going, what? They said, it's not off, it's on, right? Because I'm holding the button.
That's a really,
and and especially where we have a lot of kids, it's, with English as a second language, it could be very confusing.
Right.
So now I always say sounding. I never say that's going off.
That's a really
and that was
interesting
pointed
way
out
of
by a student, a young student to me years ago. I always learned. I had a great one also, not to diverge, but a kid asked me about fire safety. He said, what if my car catches on fire? I'm like, wow, no, I never even thought of it. It's the same thing. Get out.
Get out.
If your clothes are on fire, stop, drop, and roll. Go to a meeting place, call 911. I mean, but it was just like, I never even thought of that. Some kid just pointed, some 8, 9-year-old kid pointed it out.
It's interesting to mention that, because I was trying to think as well. So, like, you have a escape plan for your home. I have one for mine. But then you think of people, you're not only in your own homes.
Right.
You're at other homes. You're in your, work site, wherever that may be. Some places we know have like work safety staff who do those sorts of things. But, I feel like a lot of this education and initiative really has to be self-driven. I mean, you're responsible for your own safety. And to a lesser extent, you're responsible for others' safety around you. But still just understanding, like, the time it takes to make a plan, and while it may seem repetitive or, a little bit boring to try to plan these things, the impact it could have is immeasurable. I mean, it just really is. I want to talk a little bit, as we're coming near the end, about going into the schools. So as you said, learning things from the students, showing them what you look like actually in the gear, so that you're someone to run to, not someone to run away from, because you guys look scary like that. And again, your voices are distorted. What sort of reaction do you get from the students when you guys go into the school and talk to them about fire safety? Because fire is a scary topic.
Yeah. The kids are usually very enthusiastic. I love talking to the kids. They're like sponges, and they always have great stories, because you don't realize, it might not have been a big horrific thing that's happened to them, but a lot of kids have gotten burned, or know someone that's gotten burned, like, by hot liquid, a cup of coffee, or soup, hot soup spilling on them. That's what we tell them. Don't be playing in the kitchen, play outside. But I think the more you know about something, the less scary it'll be. And that's the whole idea behind it, to introduce us, safety issues, and tell them, there's something, you have a stake in it. You can protect yourself. You don't just have to worry, wait for us. You can do things to protect yourself and your family. And you brought up a really good point. Some kids are living in 2 or more places. They might be going to a different, another parent's or grandparents or somebody's house on the weekend. So we always tell them, if you live in 2 places, you have to have 2 escape drills.
Right.
I know when I go away, I go to a hotel room or something. first thing I do on the back of the door is look and see where the fire escape
Right.
is. You know, or if I'm out in a crowded place, a restaurant or a theater or something, I always look around. You know, and that's a small thing, but it's
Right.
helpful if an emergency arises. But it's good to get the kids, you know, like I said, just so they know who we are. I mean, some of them are afraid of us. You know, I know when my son was little, I brought him by the firehouse. I was picking up my paycheck, and they got a call, and the guy blew the horn, and my son never wanted to go to the firehouse again.
It is. I mean, it's so unsettling. You know what I mean? To think of this. And as you said, the more information is important. And again, I do agree, knowledge is power. And starting with them at such a young age that it just becomes a normalized conversation. You know, and I think it also empowers them as they age to kind of have the conversations more at home. I mean, I will say when my girls were younger and in school, I feel like it was brought home. You know, here was the information they had, and we did the practices and all those sorts of things. But it really just became part of like a conversation. It was like, so if you're staying here, you know, what do you take into consideration? As you said, if you're away on vacation, just all of these things. And I think it's the responsibility of everybody to make certain they have that information in a way that's able to be absorbed based on your age. So I know a friend of mine has a young son that had participated in a program in a Somerville school, and she was super impressed by like the information that was shared by the firemen that came in, and also with the sensitivity towards the age, I think is really important.
Yeah, we try to keep it age appropriate.
Right.
You know, we know a 5-year-old kid isn't going to get as much as an 8 or 9-year-old
Right.
kid. But I always finish my discussions, you know, my presentations with the kids, and I ask them, you know, can you be my helpers? I can't go to every house. I can't go to everybody. And I really mean it. You know, when you go home, talk to your family, you know, tell them what we talked about, practice these things. And it gives them, you know, a little investment in it,
Oh, of course.
gives them some power, you know, and I think that helps them, you know, hold on to it.
I think that's a nice way to wrap up. I know you did want to mention the website that people could go to if they're looking for more information.
Yeah, everything we've talked about and then some is on, if you go to mass.gov/DFS, Department of Fire Services, and everything you ever wanted to know about fire safety, laws and regulations is on there.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for coming on this year, Jim, as we talk about. We'll plan to do this. I think it's so important each year to really feature this. And again, as we talked about, experience, learning through repetition, I think this is so important. So thank you for taking the time.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. As always, I'd like to thank the production crew, Joe Constantine, Steve DiCarlo, and George Wood. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next month.